Bom, estamos começando mais um episódio, não é isso? Sejam bem-vindos, viu, pessoal? Boa tarde aí a todos. Vamos nos divertir mais um pouco, utilizando o nosso querido inglês. A gente vai continuar com o nosso livro, o velho mais rico da Babilônia, né? Porque agora ele já tava velho, né? Acho que aqui nessa parte aqui da história, acho que ele já morreu, na verdade. Bom, eu vou começar e aí depois vocês continuam. Quem é que vai como segundo? É o Isaías? É tu?
Eu mesmo.
Não, o Wendel aqui tá dizendo que ele vai.
Tá bom.
Então dessa vez tu vai ser o terceiro. Bom, vamos lá. But in those bitter days, I remembered thy confidence in me, my father. Thou hadst sent me forth to become a man, and this I was determined to accomplish. The mother buried her face and wept softly. At this time, I bethought me of the. Esse table aqui tá faltando um T, é tablet, viu, pessoal? Of the tablet. I bethought me of the tablet thou had given to me, upon which thou had carved the 5 laws of gold. Thereupon I read most carefully thy words of wisdom, and realized that had I but sought wisdom first, my gold would not have been lost to me. My gold would not have been lost to me. Ok, vou puxar mais uma vez, só para. But in those bitter days, I remembered thy confidence in me, my father. Thou hadst sent me forth to become a man, and this I was determined to accomplish. The mother buried her face and wept softly. At this time I bethought me of the tablet thou had given to me, upon which thou have carved the 5 laws of gold. Thereupon I read most carefully thy words of wisdom, and realized that had I but sought wisdom first, my gold would not have been lost to me. Verdade, se ele tivesse prestado atenção, a coisa tinha dado certo. Tu vai ler agora, Wendel? Tem certeza disso?
Absoluta. But in those bitter days, I remembered thy confidence in me, my father. Thou hadst sent me forth to become a man, and this I was determined to accomplish. The mother buried her face and wept softly. At this time I bethought me of the tablet thou had given to me, upon which thou had carved the 5 laws of God. Thereupon I read most carefully thy words of wisdom, and realized that had I but sought wisdom first, my gold would not have been lost to me.
All right, now it is my turn. So, but in those bitter days I remembered thy confidence in me, my father. Thou hadst sent me forth to become a man, and this was I was determined to accomplish. The mother buried her face and wept softly. At this time I bethought me of the tablet thou had given to me, upon which thou had carved the 5 laws of gold. Thereupon I read most carefully thy words of wisdom, and realized that had I but sought wisdom first, my gold would not have been lost to me. So, but in those bitter days I remembered thy confidence in me, my father. Thou hadst sent me forth to become a man, and this I was determined to accomplish. The mother buried her face and wept softly. At this time I bethought me of the tablet thou had given to me, upon which thou had carved the 5 laws of gold. Thereupon I read most carefully thy words of wisdom, and realized that had I but sought wisdom first, my gold would not have been lost to me. All right. So, do you want to choose the first one to suffer today or what? Lavosier? Are you there?
Ah, é porque o meu tava desligado. Tu pode escolher, cara. Pode ir.
All right. Let me
De boa.
choose the first one here. Clara. Tudo bem, Clara?
Como é?
Tudo bem. Você?
Acho
Tudo
que
bem,
não.
ótimo. Só um pouco magoado que a
Por
pessoa já
quê?
me cortou hoje já, né? Mas tudo bem, acontece.
Isaías, deixa de arenga.
Tudo bem. Vai lá, pode ir, Clara.
But in those bitter days, I remembered thy confidence in me, my father. Thou hadst sent me forth to become a man, and this I was determined to accomplish. The mother buried her face and wept softly. At this time I bethought me of the tablet thou had given to me, upon which thou had carved the 5 laws of God. Thereupon I had most carefully thy words of wisdom, and realized that had I but sought wisdom first, my gold would not have been lost to me.
All right, thank you. Now the next one. Yeah. Tudo bem contigo, Yara? Yara? Não, microfone, Wendel. Yara?
Ela tava. Tu tá aí, Yara, ainda?
É assim, só falar que ela some. Ninguém nada.
Yara? Tu ainda tá aí, Yara? Bom, parece que não. Tem outra pessoa pra escolher ou já foi todos?
O Ive agora.
É o Ive, vale a guerra.
But in those bitter days I remembered the confidence in me. My father, though, had just set me forth to become a man, and this I was determined to accomplish. The mother buried her face and wept softly. At this time, I bethought me of the table thou had given to me, upon which thou had carved the 5 laws of God. Thereupon I read most carefully the words of wisdom, and realized that had I but sought to wisdom first, my gold would not have been lost to me.
All right, that was great. Not really, man, not really. But I'm fine, thank you for asking. Agora é a Jéssica, né? Jéssica acabou de chegar. Você vai pegar ela.
Bora, Jéssica, tentar?
Eu cheguei agora.
Tem nada não.
Na próxima, no próximo eu leio.
Tem nada não, mulher. Oxe.
É bom, né?
Bom, vai lá, Isaías. Tu vai querer traduzir?
Vou sim. Aí a já
Isso.
seguiu. Yara, tu voltou, Yara? Não? Nada. Nossa, não botar essa, não, tá errada.
Oi, li não.
Ah,
Li
é?
ainda
Ah,
não.
decidiu? Ah, voltou agora?
Por que?
A
Você
gente
já
tava
tinha me
esperando.
chamado?
Já,
Não,
umas
não,
40
não.
vezes.
Sério?
Sério.
Nossa, sério, né? Que
A
loucura,
gente
né?
praticamente montou uma banda aqui e ficou gritando teu nome.
Eu era o vocalista.
Gente, pra que isso?
Aham, pra tu ver, né? E tu não ouviu.
Não,
Ei,
é
vai
porque eu
lá.
tava aqui.
Vai lá,
Tá,
Yara. Lê.
eu tenho. But in those bitter days, I remembered thy confidence in me, my father. Thou hadst sent me forth to become my man. And this I was determined to accomplish. The mother buried her face and wept softly. At this time, I
Não tô te ouvindo. Cortou,
bethought,
cortou.
bet- eu não
Bithought.
sei falar,
Bithought.
bethought me of the tablet thou had given to me, upon which thou had carved the 5 laws of gold. Thereupon I read most carefully thy words of wisdom and realized that had I but sought wisdom first, my gold would not have been lost.
Show de
Alright,
bola.
thank
É
you.
isso aí. Isso aí. E aí, Jéssica, agora, o que tu acha? Dá para ler depois de ouvir? Dá para ler. Bora? Jéssica, vamos, eu te ajudo, vamos. Eu quero que tu participe, eu te ajudo. Estou aqui bem pertinho. Seu amigo está aqui. Não se preocupe. Vamos lá.
Amigo, estou aqui.
Vixe, Maria.
But
Quando quiser.
in those
Isso.
better, bitter, o que é isso aí?
Bitter days, que é bitter days, dias amargos. I remember
Bitter
it,
I remembered
thy confidence
thy confidence in
in
me,
me. Isso.
my father. Como é que fala isso aí?
Thou hadst,
Thou hadst
isso, sent me
sent me
forth
forth
to become a man,
to become a man, and
and
this
they
I was
determined,
the quê?
determined
Determined
to accomplish,
to quê?
to accomplish, é um A bem curtinho, accomplish.
To accomplish.
Yes, the mother buried her face
The mother buried her face
and wept softly.
and wept softly.
At this time,
At this time,
I bethought me
I bethought me
of the tablet. Esse daqui, dessa palavra deveria ter um T. Esse que está como table, deveria ter um T no final dela, que isso daqui é uma tabuleta. Aí tu diz tablet, pode pronunciar tablet. Of the tablet thou had given to me,
thou had given to me,
upon which thou had carved
thou had covered
the 5 laws of gold.
the 5 laws of gold.
Thereupon I read most carefully.
I read most quê?
Carefully.
Carefully.
Isso, ó, é carefully. Aí essa palavra aqui, aí essa palavra, pessoal, ela tem o som de read, porque ele está falando no passado. Eu li muito cuidadosamente. Então, por isso que o som dela é red, parecido com vermelho. No presente ou no infinitivo, o som é read. Como é passado, é read. Thy words, continuando, Jéssica. Thy words of wisdom.
Of whiskey.
Wisdom.
Wisdom.
And realize it.
And realize it.
That had I
but
sought wisdom first.
Sought
wisdom first.
Sought wisdom first.
My gold
would not have been lost to me.
Great. Thank you very much. Tá vendo como deu certo? Você lê agora? Tá vendo? Vai lá, Isaías.
Now it's time for the translation.
Okay. So, man, do it.
Bitter days, tipo, naqueles dias amargos, I remember thy confidence in me. Eu relembrei de sua confiança em mim, meu Pai. Thou hadst sent me forth, tinha me mandado, no caso, adiante, forth, to become a man, para me tornar um homem. And this I was, sabe, determined, sabe que fala como? Fala como eu vou dizer aqui?
Determined.
Eu estava determinado a conquistar, a alcançar. The mother buried, a mãe no caso buried, enterrar, mas aquele que tá aqui é de esconder. Cobriu o rosto and wept softly. E chorou levemente, um lacrimejou, ficou emocionado, né? Mas se cobriu logo. And this time, desta vez, I bethought me. O thought de pensar, com bethought, tipo, ele se imaginou, ele se lembrou dele mesmo. Ou me lembrei, no caso, me lembrei of the table da tablet, a placa, thou had given to me, tu tinha me dado, upon which thou had carved, a qual você tinha carvado, tipo, marcado, escrito, the five laws of gold, as 5 leis do ouro, da riqueza. Thereupon, portanto, I read most carefully thy words of wisdom. Eu li mais cuidadosamente, tuas palavras de sabedoria, thy words of wisdom. And realized, e percebi, that had I but thought wisdom first, se eu tivesse sido logo procurar a sabedoria primeiro, my gold was not lost. Meu ouro não tinha se perdido por mim.
Show de bola. Não teria se perdido de mim, né? O ouro do cara. Beleza, eu vou pegar o próximo agora. Lá e vou eu. I learned by heart each law and determined that when once more the goddess of good fortune smiled upon me, I would be guided by the wisdom of age and not by the inexperience of youth. For the benefit of you who are seated here this night, I will read the wisdom of my father as engraved upon the clay tablet which he gave to me 10 years ago. Mais uma vez. I learned by heart each law and determined that when once more the goddess of good fortune smiled upon me, I would be guided by the wisdom of age and not by the inexperience of youth. For the benefit of you who are seated here this night, I will read the wisdom of my father as engraved upon the clay tablet which he gave to me 10 years ago. 10 years ago. Quem vai agora? Tu tá ocupado, Wendel?
It should be Wendell, right?
O Wendel vai, o Wendel.
I learned by heart each law and determined that when once more the goddess of good fortune smiled upon me, I would be guided by the wisdom of age and not by the inexperience of youth. For the benefit of you who are seated here this night, I will read the wisdom of my father as engraved upon the clay tablet which he gave to me 10 years ago. Okay, yes.
Alright. So, I learned by heart each law and determined that.
Aproxima mais.
Opa. I learned by heart each law and determined that when once more the goddess of good fortune smiled upon me, I would be guided by the wisdom of age and not by the inexperience of youth. For the benefit of you who are seated here this night, I will read the wisdom of my father as engraved upon the clay tablet which he gave to me 10 years ago. So I learned by heart each law and determined that when once more the goddess of good fortune smiled upon me, I would be guided by the wisdom of age and not by the inexperience of youth. For the benefit of you who are seated here this night, I will read the wisdom of my father as engraved upon the clay tablet which he gave to me 10 years ago. Alright. So let me choose the first one. Ih, eu tô espertinho. Aparece aí, agora falar aqui. Olha aqui na minha cara, cara.
Oi,
que é?
tudo bem?
Tá, liga aí a tela que eu falo na tua cara.
Liguei, cadê? Liguei
É
agora.
triste a situação.
Liguei, e aí, diz aí.
Falei na tua cara, pronto. I learned by heart to eat law and determined that when once more the goddess of good fortune smiled upon me, I would be
Bem.
guided by guided
Ah, não,
be
desculpa.
guided
É, isso mesmo. Foi erro
be
meu
guided
agora.
by be guided by the wisdom of age and not by the inexperience of youth. For the benefit of you who are seated here this night, I will read the wisdom of my father as engraved upon the clay tablet which he gave to me 10 years ago.
Show.
Alright, so the next one. Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah.
Eu.
É tu
Tudo bem
mesmo.
contigo?
Como é?
Tudo bem contigo?
Como é?
Uhum. Beleza.
Tudo é uma questão de
Ela.
perspectiva.
Quê?
Oi? Nada não. Pode continuar. Divirta-se.
I learned by heart each law and determined that when once more the goddess of good fortune smiled upon me, would be guided by the wisdom of age, not by the experience of youth. For the benefit of you who are seated here this night, I will read the wisdom of my father as engraved on the clay tablet which he gave to me 10 years ago.
Alright. The next one. Kyle.
I learned by heart each law and determined that, when once more the goddess of good fortune smiled upon me, I would be guided by the wisdom of age and not by the inexperience of youth. For the benefit of you who are seated here this night, I will read the wisdom of my father as engraved upon the clay tablet which he gave to me 10 years ago.
Right. What about Jessica? Is she going to read?
Vai sim, né, Jéssica?
Né, Jéssica? A pessoa chega e se esconde, a pessoa.
Jéssica, eu não acredito que tu foi merendar e abandonou a gente, não, Jéssica.
É o que eu tô fazendo, eu tô merendando mesmo.
Foi o que eu imaginei, só podia ser. Vamos lá? É a partinha azul. Deixa eu subir um pouco, porque aí vai ficar mais visíveis. Mas é só essa partinha azul aí, ó. Vai lá.
I learned by her,
Heart.
fala assim, heart each law. Eu não sei se
Each law. Vamos lá. Each law.
each law
And determined that.
determined that when once
Once more, the goddess
that the goddess of
good fortune
good fortune
smiled upon me,
smiled upon me,
I would be guided by the wisdom of age and not by the inexperience of youth.
and not by the experience of youth.
Inexperience
Inexperience of
of
youth.
youth. Yes. for the benefit of you,
for the benefit, field, like
benefit,
see,
benefit
for the benefit of
of
you
you
who
who are seated here
are seated here
this night.
this night. This night,
I will
I
read
will, I will read the
wisdom
wisdom, the wisdom of my father as, eu não sei se
engraved
engraved
upon the
impressed
clay tablet, upon the clay tablet,
upon the clay tablet,
which
which
he gave to me
which he gave to me 10 years ag-
ago.
ago.
10 years ago, 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Yes.
So now it's time to translate. Can I take it?
Yes, of course, man.
Alright. I learned it by heart. Essa letra é aquela letra que fica aqui, ó. Eu aprendi por coração. Não, mas foi a
É.
pessoa que escreveu por coração.
Eu aprendi é como se eu dissesse assim, eu gravei no fundo do meu coração.
Né? Each law and determined that. Eu coloquei em coração cada lei ou regra e determinei que when once more the goddess of good fortune smiled upon me, quando uma vez mais, once more, uma vez mais, the goddess of good fortune smiled upon me, assim
Hã?
os deuses da
Wisdom,
fortuna
sabedoria.
sorrissem sobre mim, I would be guided, eu seria guiado by the wisdom of age, para a sabedoria dos sábios antigos, and not by the experience of youth, e não pela inexperiência da juventude. For the benefit of you who are seated here this night, para o benefício, para o agrado de vocês que estão sentados aqui esta noite, I will read the wisdom of my father. Eu lerei a sabedoria de meu pai, as engraved upon the clay tablet. Assim gravada sobre as placas de argila, which he gave to me 10 years ago. Os quais ele me deu 10 anos atrás. Alright. So,
Beleza. Show de bola. Vamos pro próximo, né? The Five Laws of Gold. The Five Laws of Gold. Gold come gladly and in increasing quantity to any man who will put by not less than 1/10 of his earnings to create an estate for his future and that of his family. Gold laboreth diligently, and contentedly for the wise owner who finds for it a profitable employment, multiplying even as the flocks of the field. Gold come gladly and increasing quantity to any man who will put by not less than 1/10 of his earnings to create an estate for his future and that of his family. Gold labored diligently and contentedly for the wise owner who finds for it profitable employment, multiplying even as the flocks of the field. Tu vai tentar ler agora ou vai Isaías? Ele vai, Isaías, tentar ler, viu?
Gold commits gladly and increasing quantity to any man who will put by not less than 1/10 of his earnings to create an estate for his future and that of his family. Gold laboreth diligently and contentedly for the wise owner who finds for this profitable employment multiplying even as the flocks of the field. Okay.
Alright, now it is me. God cometh gladly and in increased quantity to any man who will put by no less than one tenth of his earnings to create an estate for his future and that of his family. God laboreth diligently, come-
Eu
diligently.
não tô te ouvindo direito, Isaías.
Não, você não conhece essa palavra agora. Eu tinha pesquisado assim, a pronúncia dela, mas agora eu me enrolei.
Qual é?
Diligently, né?
Diligently. É, diligently.
Diligently, and contentedly for the wise honor who finds for it profitable employment, multiplying even as the flocks of the field. Again, God cometh gladly and in increasing quantity to any man who will put by no less than one tenth of his earnings to create an estate for his future and that of his family. Go laboreth diligently and contentedly for the wise honor who finds for it profitable employment, multiplying even as the flocks of the field. So, do you want to choose the first one? Alright, let me
Não, pode escolher, Isaías.
Clara?
Gold cometh gladly and increase in quantity to any man who will put by not less than one tenth of his earnings to create an estate for his future and that of his family. Gold laboreth diligently and contentedly for the wise owner who finds for it profitable employment, multiplying even as the flock of the field.
Alright, the next one. Eve.
God cometh gladly and in increasing quantity to any man who will put by not less than one tenth of his ear- earnings
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, né?
to create an estate for his future and that of his family. God laboreth diligently,
Diligently. Diligently.
diligently and contentedly for the wise owner who finds for it profitable employment, multiplying even as the flocks of the field.
Alright. So, the next one. Yal.
God cometh gladly and in increasing quantity to any man who will put by not less than one tenth of his earnings to create an estate of his future and that of his family. God laboreth diligently, contentedly for the wise owner who finds for it profitable employment, multiplying even as the flocks of the field.
Alright. Now it is Jessica. Where are Jessica? Jessica?
Oi,
Oi. Pode ler agora, por favor?
good comment. Eu não sei se o quê?
Gladly. Gladly.
Gladly
Isso.
and in increasing. Wait, não sei se
Quanto?
quatro
Quantity
quantity
to any
to
man
any man
who will
who will put by not less than
put 1/10
one tenth of his year
Earnings.
earnings to create an
And
não sei se é
state,
and state for his future
future,
and
and that of his family.
that of his family. Could eu não sei essa palavra.
Goat, laboreth,
Could laboreth
diligently, and contentedly,
diligently and contently for the
wise
we-
honor,
wise owner who finds
finds for it profitable employment.
profitable employment.
Uh-huh.
Employment multiplying multiplying even as the flux of flocks of the
Field. Flocks of the field.
Alright.
Of the field.
Yeah.
Yes, that's great.
So, now it's time for the translation.
Okay.
Gold comes gladly and in increasing quantity. Dinheiro, riqueza vem gladly, com felicidade, com satisfação, and in increasing quantity, em uma quantidade crescente. To any man who will put, para qualquer homem, o qual colocará, by no less than 1/10, por volta de não menos do que 1/10 of his earnings, de seus ganhos. To create an estate, para criar patrimônio, uma riqueza, for his future, para o seu futuro, and that of his family, de sua família. Aí a segunda regra. Go labor diligently and contentedly. Guia trabalhos ou trabalha diligently, cuidadosamente, cautelosamente, e, de novo, né, com satisfação, satisfatoriamente, for the wise owner, para o dono sábio, para aquele que o possui que seja sábio. O find for it, o qual me conta para ele. Profitable employment, employment tipo um foco, uma função. Profitable, lucrável, que lucra, ou seja, aquele que encontra para o olho uma função, algo que gere mais riqueza. Multiplying even as the flocks of the field, multiplicando até mesmo como os rebanhos ou os pastos do campo. Alright, so.
Okay, that's great.
Do you want to go to the next one?
Yes, just to finish.
Alright.
God clingeth to the protection of the cautious owner, who invests it under the advice of men wise in its handling. Gold sleepeth away from the man who invests it in businesses or purposes with which he is not familiar or which are not approved by those skilled in its keep. Vai ler, Wendel, agora? O Wendel vai ler, depois tu pega as regras.
Good.
Peraí, deixa eu desligar o áudio aqui.
Good clingeth to the protection of the cautious owner. Cautious owner who invests it under the advice of men wise in its handling. God sleepeth away from the man who invests it in business of purpose with which he is familiar or which are
Gold
not
clingeth to the
approved by
protection
those
of the cautious
skilled
owner who
in
invests it
its
under the
keeping.
advice of men wise in its handling. IV.
Now it is
Gold
me.
slippeth away from
Gold
the man who
clingeth
invests
to
it
the
in businesses
protection
or
of the
purposes with
cautious
which he is
owner
not
who
familiar or which are
invested
not
under the
approved by
advice
those
of
skilled
men
in its
wise
keep.
in its handling. Gold slippeth away from the man who invested in businesses or purposes with which he is not familiar or which are not approved by those skilled in its keep. So, gold clingeth to the protection of the cautious owner who invested under the advice of men wise in its handling. Gold slippeth away from the man who invested in business or purposes with which he is not familiar, or which are not approved by those skilled in its keep. So let me choose the first one. Yeah, yeah.
Oi. Okay.
Oi, oi, som.
Not clingeth to the protection of the cautious owner who invested under the advice of and wise in its handling. But slip away from the man who invested in businesses or purposes with which he is not familiar or which are not approved by those skilled in its keep.
All right, I saw my microphone turned it off, but it wasn't. So, the next one, Eve.
Eve.
Gold slingeth to the protection of the ocean's owner who invests in under the advice of men wise in its handling. Gold is slipped away from the man who invests it in business or purposes with which he is not familiar or which are not approved by those skilled in its keep.
All right. So, Clive.
Gold clingeth to the protection of the conscious owner who invests it under the advice of men wise in its handling.
Eu vou chamar o
The
café de manhã,
spirit
né?
is lapsed.
Eu
Nossa,
vou
não
chamar
posso
o
falar?
café de manhã, né? Não participando.
Well,
Be
not
fair.
Papa, not familiar. Tô falando aquela que é a última.
Eu vou mexer.
Claro?
Away from the man who invests it in the business or purpose with which he is
Eu vou ver
not
uma
familiar
vez.
or which
Uma
are
vez.
not approved by those skilled in its keep.
All right. Thank you. Now it is Jessica. Jessica, are you there?
Gold
Klinger.
Como é essa palavra aí?
Klinger.
Hã?
Klinger.
Gold clingers? Não sei. Eu não entendi, tu acredita?
Qual? A segunda?
Clingers.
Kling, eu queria cling. Aí vem um ET. Klinger. Klinger.
Clinger.
Clingeth.
Gold clingeth to the protection of the
Cautious.
cautious owner who invests it under
Ah,
eh?
é.
Under the advice of men
Wise.
wise
In its handling.
in its handling. Gold
Sleepeth.
goes leaveth
Away.
away
From the man.
away from the man who
Invested.
invested it. Já tá juntando, né?
É. Ó, invested
Invested in
in
businesses
businesses or purposes
or purposes
with which
with which
he is
he is
not
not
familiar,
familiar or which
which
are not
approved,
approved by those skilled in
skilled
skilled in
in
keep
its keep, in its
in
keep,
its
in
All
its
right.
keep. Ok. Vai traduzir,
So,
Isaías?
yeah, I'm gonna translate it. I was quite busy right now, but I'm back.
Aham.
Esse clinga, no sentido de ou se mantém perto, ou
É
se
tipo se
atinge,
apega, né?
se apega, se atinge, pega. To the protection of the cautious owner, para a proteção do dono cuidadoso.
Isso.
Cautious, cuidadoso. Who invested, o qual investe, under the advice of men wise in its management. Sobre os conselhos dos homens sábios em seu manejamento.
Isso, no manejo ou no manuseio.
God leads away from the man, o ele escapa, ou vai para longe, ou escorrega para longe, from the man, dos homens, invested, o qual investe em negócio, em business, or proposes ou propostas, with which he is not familiar, os quais ele não está familiarizado, or which are not approved, os quais não são aprovados, by those skilled in its keep, para os habilidosos em seu manuseio, ou em sua manutenção. Melhor
É, em
manuseio.
manter ele. Ele não é aprovado por aqueles que são habilidosos em manter. Porque seria a ideia do tipo assim, ó. O ouro ele escapole das mãos daqueles que investem em negócios que não entendem. Literalmente é isso. Ou você vai perder o ouro se você investir ele sem o conselho de alguém experiente, e no caso, investir em algo que você não entende. Porque assim, se você investir em algo que não entende, mas se você tem uma pessoa que entende fazendo para você, é uma coisa. Se você não tem, ferrou. Pessoal, é isso. Por hoje é só. Por hoje é só. Ei, Isaías,
Yes,
tu ainda tem esse livro, tem?
eu sim.
Tu manda esse parágrafo, tu manda o áudio aí pros meninos?
Certo, mano.
Manda, vai ser. Que aí vai ser o texto. Tu manda esses 2 parágrafos aqui, ó. Tu vai mandar esses 2. Os 2 últimos. Esse que a gente leu e o penúltimo. Junta os 2 e manda. Pode ser?
Até o Gold Kings, até
Começa isso. Começa no Gold Come até o Gold Sleeper. Esse texto todo. Pode ser?
os três primeiros, né? Os três primeiros.
É, tu tá chamando de 3. É porque eu tô considerando 2 só porque eu selecionei o amarelo primeiro e o azul.
Uhum.
Entendeu?
Mas é de Gold começa até It's Handling, né?
É, pode ser. Pronto, pode ser.
Beleza.
Tu manda?
Pode sim, pode deixar.
Pois tá. Pois, pessoal, tem alguma dúvida, alguma pergunta? Algum comentário? Desespero? Nope. Ei, pois vocês estão livres, viu? Estão liberados.
Valeu, pessoal. Se cuida.
Estão liberados. Aí amanhã, para quem quiser vir, só tem que marcar, tem aula presencial aqui na escola, viu? 3 horas de inglês. Tchau, tchau.